Good afternoon, everybody. This is another of our webinar Wednesdays. Very exciting. I think we're on week 6 now, maybe. Who knows? Time flies when you're having fun. This is our very first one with the lovely Pete, though, and he will be taking us through multi-factor authentication, or MFA, to the cool kids. So I'm going to let Pete talk a little bit about that. If you want to add any questions, we've already had some pre-event questions come through, but if you want to ask any questions during the webinar, Pete can either pick those up in the chat as we go along, or we'll do those at the end. This will take, I reckon, about 15 minutes. We've got half an hour in. Pete's a very busy person, so I'm not going to keep him for any longer than that. And aside from that, all I'll say is let's begin. Hi, Pete.
Yeah, many thanks, Kat. Hi, everybody. First of all, thanks for your time. It's only going to be a few minutes. It's security. However, security is what we do now. We're going to be doing it more and more, and we are basically responsible for our own sites. So, if you would just indulge me for just a minute, I just want to take you back in time and let's see where authentication and security has come from. So in the olden days, much older than me, in fact, people were using wax seals. So you'd have a little messenger running around with a wax seal, and that would authenticate that message to whomever it was sent to, apparently. There's a slight problem with that. Are you allowing people?
I'll be doing those,
yeah. Basically the slight problem is with that. Once you've presented a letter or parcel with your seal, you've given your seal away, and that can be easily copied and duplicated. With grave consequences if you get caught, though. Then along come the signature. Now people were getting literate then. Is that right? Yeah, opposite of illiterate. They were getting literate, and people were beginning to use signatures. But again, exactly the same issue as with the wax seal. Once you write your signature, potentially, to the wrong person, they've got it. They are effectively you. Strangely enough, it's the 21st century. We still rely on signatures. So yeah, right. So moving quickly along to digital, or the computing age, and we got something called a password. Now, let's be honest, passwords are fantastic. Great if you've got an easy one, a short one. It's great for the user. They don't have to write it down. It's just in the memory. But that's also great for the hacker. So that's not very good. Difficult ones. Yeah, we start impressing ourselves by saying, yeah, you must have 8 characters, complexity, uppercase, lowercase, character substitution, special characters, blah, blah, blah. A little bit more difficult for the user, still manageable. And you know what? It's not much more difficult for the hacker, just a little bit of brute force, and he's happy as well. So far, we're pleasing everybody and pleasing nobody. You can ask people to change the passwords on a regular basis. That for some people is a good thing. For me personally, I don't agree with that one. You're just inviting people to put a 1 at the end, or an explanation, or some kind of number at the end, or a derivative of the password they've had for years. Password 1, password 2, password 3, and if you are, really want to see this in action, take the time to run around your site and look under a few keyboards. There'll be a password written down. So if a password's any good, it's no good. So if it's a random stream of characters, it's no good for the user, and it's actually no good for the hacker. So you can see where we're coming from now. So where are we today? Well, each one of those methods I've talked about, in its own context, in its own time, was adequate, and probably no more than adequate. And I'd like to think what we're getting into now, the multi-factor authentication, sometimes known as two-factor authentication, will last us a decade. I'm kind of hoping that that's the case. You can have no pushback from your users now because people are using Twitter, Facebook, banks, insurance, everything. You're being challenged with a multi-factor authentication challenge. So nobody can object to that. I know some of you guys would have experienced people who really don't want to give you their personal details. Well, let's get one thing straight. You're not getting their personal details. You are leveraging, if we're talking about Microsoft 365 as a provider of MFA, a multi-billion-dollar platform. We can't compete with that. You can put 10 padlocks on your gates, or whatever extreme measures you want to do. We just cannot compete with that. And they've invested an awful lot of money, time, and energy. And what we've got there is effectively free. And that, I think, is the point. There's two reasons why you need to seriously consider your multi-factor authentication. It's now extremely good value / free, and it's needed. It's absolutely needed. I could literally, I've been told I can't, but I would love to spend all evening with you talking about some of the attacks that we've heard about, and probably you've heard about as well. I don't want to be a drama queen, but I'm going to be. It's almost when you get attacked, not if now. And I think a lot of you will recognize this. So multi-factor authentication, I've just gone the long way round, but what is it? It's effectively something you know and something you've got. Now, we've already seen, going through history, something you know is rubbish, because for some strange reason, your bank can ring you up and ask you for your details. Yes, just let me get the details. There you go, sir. There's my PIN. You know, humans are rubbish. So when you put humans and security together, your lowest common denominator, it's a bit rubbishy. So this platform, two-factor authentication platform with something you've got, that's kind of what takes the human out of it a little bit. Now, I know I've got some questions, so I don't want to keep going on, Kat, because I'll be answering questions, I think.
Okay.
But yes, now is the time. Now is the time for multi-factor authentication. So
can you just clarify, when you say it's something that you know and something that you've got,
yes,
just
sure. So look, I'm not saying throw your passwords away. Security should always be layers and belts and braces, for the people who know what those are. So we still need a strong password. We don't want to get away from that, because that's part of the system. But something you know, something you've got is almost certainly you've got what are these called? Smartphones. Even I've got one. And that's why now is the time. We're in a position, and the smartphone acts as something you've got, unless you lose it, get it stolen. But let's not go there. This is why we're never going to be 100%. So it's important we have a good password or a passphrase or a passkey, and something you've got. Basically, we can use the something you've got, whether it's your camera on your laptop because you've trusted your laptop or trusted your tablet. That becomes something you've got. You don't actually need a phone. Trust a device. But generally speaking, we can use biometrics. I don't know, somebody said recently it's the heel of your hand now that's the most secure, rather than your thumbs. Don't know. Retina scans. What else? Just about any part of your body, I'm guessing now they can do. Maybe even the way you walk. I mean, I don't know. I mean, AI is so clever now, so clever.
Yeah, Windows Hello can tell the difference between twins, identical twins, which is quite
Really?
cool. It can, yeah. There's a fun fact for you, Pete.
I can tell you, I can just throw something in here that's just completely off piste. When Windows Hello, or whatever it was called back in the day, come out, a young man called Simon Steele, he was showing his off. He says, "Look, I can open my laptop with my face." He's all like, but we had a photograph of him, and we give it the photograph, and it opened. But seriously, it has come an awful long way now. You can do twins, can it? Identical
It can,
twins.
yeah.
I would say to you, they're probably not identical then, if I was being a bit naughty. Anymore.
Well, on that note, we'll get to questions.
Oh, okay.
So, our first question. So, anybody who's got questions that are on the webinar now, if you've not asked a question, if you've got another question, please pop it in the chat box and we'll get to that as well. But the pre-event questions I'll run through to give people some time to think. So, the first one is, if I've got MFA, am I then completely protected?
No, no, of course not. You are. Imagine a street full of houses. One, the front door's open. Another one, it's locked. Another one's got an alarm. Which one's going to get burgled, do you think? So sadly, if you protect yourselves with multi-factor authentication, you're going to get bypassed. But it's not a guarantee. And the way I think we call it quantum computers at the moment, but the way computing is going, maybe a decade is me being optimistic about when this technology becomes the wax seal or the signature. But it's a must. It's a must in this day and age. Yeah.
And then another one we've had is, our college has a one-to-one device ratio. Should we consider setting it up for our students too?
Well, let's assume for this conversation we're talking about the Microsoft platform. It's extremely low maintenance. So if you've got devices on a one-to-one relationship, you're making Microsoft very happy, by the way. That's a computing paradigm they actually like, and they are building their systems around that, really. Yes, it would be very, very little management other than license assignment, which can be done dynamically through group membership in any case. I don't know how many of you have seen this with the Microsoft one, but something really modern that you millennials have invented is a QR code. So when a user registers, which you can restrict to your protected network, your school site, they just literally scan a QR code. They're done.
Oh,
They've not
wow.
given you, the administrator, any of their information. They've not shared with anybody anything. They've literally, at that point, typed in the username and password, and then they've had a QR, and then they're now glued.
Wow.
But yes,
Okay.
I would do it. I would do it personally. It can't hurt. It can't hurt.
I can see a question is being typed, but
Oh,
just I'll give myself them a little bit more time. So I'll just ask another one that was pre-event. Will it ask me for authentication every time I log in?
okay. No, that is a good question. One we rehearsed earlier, isn't it? I know. So yeah, so basically, you're in a school, and the first thing you're going to say is, "Well, our kids aren't allowed to have mobiles, so we can't use MFA." Well, you can. So what we do, we set up something called trusted networks or trusted sites or a trusted location, whichever interface you're in. And we pop into that something unique to your network. And that's typically your network addresses. They're all unique when you get to the internet, externally facing. So although MFA will be working in the background all the time when people are accessing information and programs, it will not issue a challenge if you are on a protected network. I mean, it's your network. I mean, you're protecting that. You don't need to be challenged. It also means that teachers, if they're using MFA, don't get beeps and disturb the kids. I mean, nobody needs to be disturbed. And we do that with something called conditional access. And conditional access, exactly what it says, really. We make up some rules, the weirdest logic I've ever seen, but you make up these rules, and then basically you could have a rule that says, if somebody's on a beach in Barbados, but they've got a trusted device and they've logged in with a retina scan or whatever, yeah, don't even challenge them there. You know, um, that's how clever conditional access is. But you might almost always insist that if they aren't on a trusted device, that you want them challenged when they're off your network or networks. It can be both. Yeah. I
Okay,
forgot what
well,
the question was, but it sounded a good answer to whatever you
it,
asked. Yeah.
it was a good answer. It was about asking authentication every time you logged in, but it also has answered another pre-event question we
Oh,
had, which
okay.
was about being bothered all the time. So you've answered two in one there. So great job.
Yeah.
Another question that we've actually just had through live, which is exciting,
Cool.
um, is, our trust provide laptops to all staff? Does MFA offer anything that strict conditional access can't?
Well, conditional access leverages is a set of rules for the multi-factor authentication platform. So they work together. They multi-factor authentication is the bit that sends the nice lady who telephones you if you're lonely and you have a lady talk to you, or you can have a text message, or you can have an authenticator app approve, or 6-digit number, I think it is. The conditional access basically controls when the challenge happens.
So if you had very strict conditional access, could that almost make the laptop pointless outside of your network, for
Of
example?
course, of course, of
Okay.
course. I mean, the thing with security throughout the ages is these are very simple. If you imagine a graph and you've got that up there and that's security, and you've got this down here and that's usability. If you want high security, usability goes down, and if you want high, whatever the opposite is, I've just said the converse, it's the opposite. That's when you start throwing money at it, and then you get really great security and really great usability. And I think this is where MFA with conditional access just hits the sweet spot. It allows you to work, but it allows the people who are protecting it, i.e. the administrators, to protect the users without them knowing it. It's like, well, forget it. So yeah.
We've just had another question in. The caveat of conditional access is that you can't get it for free. Most people in education have an Office 365 A1 or A3 license agreement, and neither of those include MFA or conditional access. I think it needs pointing out that they would need to get a Prem P1, which is going to cost. That goes a little bit, I will just put a caveat in there that says that would go a little bit into our licensing specialism, which isn't necessarily Pete's bag.
Yes.
I'll be honest there. We do have at Virtue a licensing expert within our sales and account management team. So if you do have questions specifically about that, we can answer that. But I think, and I might be speaking out of turn, unfortunately, she's not on this call, so I can't guarantee that I am being 100% accurate. But I believe that any licensing through Office 365 is done on a number of teachers and adult users, if you like, versus students being free. But I can't 100%
Yeah.
claim
I
that
mean,
that's true.
if I was to comment on the licensing, and I will just say this, that Microsoft have always got a scheme to potentially give you more licenses than you pay for. I might be one faculty license and 15, student licenses. Now, if you look closely at those licenses, I'm just saying they are actually the same license.
We've also got somebody commenting that they use two-factor authentication on A1 and A3, so
They're well posh.
so it might be possible to get that without the Prem P1 license, but that's above my pay grade, definitely. I don't know about you.
What we do at Virtue, look, I'm sure there's lots of tricks and workarounds and schemes that can be used with your licensing. It's not for me to talk on an open platform about that. But what I would say to you is Virtue will always sell you, the above board solution, the what you should really have. Should you choose not to do that and find another way around that, I mean, that's yeah. I mean, let's just say nothing's impossible. But Virtue as a responsible lender, no, Virtue, when we say doing an RDS upgrade, it's, why would you upgrade to a 2012 box with MFA when it's already 10 years out of date itself? So this is what I'm talking about, layers of security. You've got to make sure everything's in step and you get the best possible experience as well. So sorry.
No, that's good. we are recording, and I'm not sure if people will be able to see the chat box in the recording.
Oh,
So we'll
right.
just say Lee, our account manager for the Northwest for secondary schools, who's on this call. Hi, Lee. Has put a little comment on that says licensing is purely worked out on the exact numbers of remote desktop users, RDS users, staff, and not concurrent, but the total number who use RDS. But for each staff license, you get 15 students free.
Oh,
So
okay.
licensing is around £15 per user of the RDS per annum. So
Yeah. Like I said at the start, MFA is almost free now, and I think it's got to be. It just makes sense. I mean, the NHS work in the same way. They give me some pills to stop bits dropping off, because if they didn't, I'd be in hospital having very expensive operations. So it's an investment up front. So Microsoft, like I say, there's two things going to happen very quickly, I believe. And I know some of the guys who are on the call have probably heard me say this before. The paradigm of the directory will shift. At the moment, we are syncing everything from an on-premise to a cloud directory. Now, we haven't got billions of dollars to spend on our security. Microsoft have. So I reckon within just a few years-ish, or even sooner for some, the paradigm will shift, and we'll be syncing we'll be syncing the Azure Active Directory to the AD. And at that point, a lot of other facilities will become free. So the longer you leave it, the cheaper it will be. Or the longer you leave it and you get stung, you're the one who's one of the schools that get robbed. It's yeah,
yeah, we have seen a lot of
bad world out there, folks.
yes, we've seen a lot of people
Yeah.
have attacks very, very recently. It's gone up in numbers, which is actually why this webinar was requested
Oh,
by some of our customers and some of our account managers. And on that note, you can email through to marketing@virtuetechnologies.co.uk and let us know if there's anything that you want to see as topics for Webinar Wednesday. I'm here every Wednesday. Pete isn't always, I'll be honest. But
do
we
anything
go
to get
through
noticed. Yeah.
go through a number of topics that are designed to help and support you guys. So anything that you want to see, drop me an email.
I
I
do have
think.
one thought, Kat, if I may, if
Mm-hmm.
you
Of
rudely interrupt.
course
I
you
do have
can.
one thought. A lot of the attacks that we see now are what we call crafted. In other words, they don't just break in and do something bad. These attacks could happen over a period of months. So if you did start to employ MFA and you had been attacked, or you were currently being attacked, or it's a docile attack at the moment, sometimes they get places where they're going to come and play later. And you then become a currency, by the way, you become a product. So we could, when you do employ your multi-factor, all of a sudden that door's locked as well. So you might actually be saving well, you won't know you're saving yourself, but potentially you could be saving yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, we've actually heard from Sophos, one of our partners, providers. I don't.
Premier partners. Yeah. Yeah.
We're a
Providers.
platinum partner of Sophos's. Yeah, that's true. And they're
Shameless plug here.
we provide a lot of their products and solutions, but they were explaining in a different webinar the other day that you can have somebody in your network for months that you wouldn't know is there. And some of their solutions are basically designed to find and track down those people, but it would be very, very rare that a ransom attack would happen like that. Like, it is people that are on your network and have been for weeks, months. So again, it's something that you really need to bear in mind with your security and building up those layers.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I don't think we've got any more questions. So I'm conscious of time, your time, Pete, and everybody who's been thoughtful enough to join us today. So unless there is any more questions, I think we can probably call an end to today.
Oh, okay. I just
Ooh.
want to say thanks to everybody who's put up with me.
I would like to say a huge, huge thank you to you, Pete, for joining us on today's webinar Wednesday. Very, very helpful. I couldn't have done it without you, I'll be honest. I don't know enough about MFA, so it would have been a much more boring webinar.
Thanks very much.
So thank
Am I
you.
dismissed?
You are, you can go. Thank you very, very much for joining. I'd like to thank everybody else who's joined us today and say thanks very much for joining. And next week we'll be doing C-Touch demos. If you want to join us then, take a look at the website, our social feeds, or ask your account manager for the link. And I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks, Pete. Bye-bye.